Hello, dear outliers. Welcome to the Outlier Marketer Show. My name is Kumar Achinta, and I am a visual storyteller and one of the hosts for this show. Let us start today's episode of the Outlier Marketer Show. Think, act, and be different. We have an amazing guest on the show today. And before I introduce the guest, let me talk about the Outlier Marketer himself. Yes, he is Pravin Shekar. He's an outlier marketer and a raconteur. Unconventional marketing is his forte. When the world moves one way, you need to move another. That's Pravin's philosophy and work style. As a parallel entrepreneur, Pravin has taken companies from startup to multi-million dollars in revenues. An author of multiple books. Pravin is the recipient of the American Marketing Association's Emerging Leader Award. He is also the recipient of the Ginny Valentine Award for skilling and employing people with disabilities. Now, it's my privilege to introduce the guest for today's show. His name is Chris Cheetham. He's a seasoned professional who is dedicated to helping organizations utilize online tools to expand their business, thus leading to increased results. He's a former Google employee, marketing specialist, Google Analytics expert. In his former position at Google, he managed marketing programs and strategies for key products. Chris is one of the best keynote speakers around and can help your corporate team and organization achieve measurable results. That's Chris Cheetham. Over to you, Pravin.
Thanks a lot. The Outlier Marketer Show, Think, Act, and Be Different. And this episode is brought to you by Can-Do, our proud sponsors, cando.ind.in, a social entity that provides skills and employment for people with disability. So thank you, Can-Do. And Chris, great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. So the first question is, you've had a significant experience in Google. How has that experience shaped your speaking and training career?
Yes, it was a great experience. So once I got the job, part of the position was to help organizations get involved in Google products. But part of that position involved me and a team of 4 other people in a certain city, San Antonio, go around the country and educate small business owners and some large organizations on how to use Google tools. And this included Google Analytics, AdWords, even Google Plus when it was around as well. And so whenever we would do these events, I'll be one of the only ones that will be excited about these events. So everybody would be like, why do we got to do a workshop? And I was like, you know what, this is exciting. And from then on, I realized, hey, maybe I should continue doing this. Maybe I should do this as a profession. So that really helped me get me started when it comes to professional speaking and letting me know how to do it and that I enjoy doing it. And from then on out, I decided, let me see if I can be a professional at doing this. And eventually ended up starting the business by 2014. And it really helped because it was some credibility and I got experience presenting to so many people across the country, United States.
Good. That's an observation that I did when we were studying your website, that you've spoken in 48 of the 50 United States and, of course, several other countries as well, Chris. Now, as a speaker, as a trainer, you also talk about innovative trends. So my question here, Chris, sitting out there in US and Canada, what are the innovative trends in the digital marketing space that you're observing or sensing?
So I think there's many different trends that are happening right now. And it's interesting because we can talk about trends, but also we got to think about what are all the ways people can market that they're not currently using right now. So for example, when it comes to being found on Google, there's a huge amount of small and large organizations that are not utilizing the power of being found on Google and being found correctly on the searches. So when people type in certain keywords, and just overall, people might be only paying attention to one channel. Maybe they're only paying attention to social media. But guess what? Maybe your competitor is already on that channel. So I always encourage organizations to think about, where is your competitor struggling? What part of those channels are they struggling with? Maybe it's video, maybe it's online, maybe it's social. But once you do that, then you're at a specific advantage, because then that could be your strength in order to lead the marketplace. So one of the trends that I've seen is voice, because more and more people are starting to use these different types of apps that require your voice. So we have the Alexa, we have all the search things you could do on your phone. So instead of searching type by typing, people are going to start using their voice. And so we got to be prepared for that if they start using their voice more often. So we got to start thinking about, what are they typing in? Not only that, but like, how do they say things? Because if you're trying to market online with your website, yeah, we know how people are typing things, because we can look at the tools, and we know how we type things, so that can help us out. But when it comes down to how people speak, we got to start thinking about, okay, how would somebody say this verbally, and how can we add this to our site? How can we use that kind of language when it comes to our content? Because I always believe that the key is to speak your audience's language. So if they go to your site and they can't relate to what you're saying, they might not purchase from you because they just don't connect with you. But if you're speaking the same language as your target audience, then they're going to be more willing to work with you. And this comes down to the same thing that I mentioned earlier, which is voice. So how are they speaking? Not only how are they writing? So that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome. Where I come from in India, we've got over 25 official languages and over 500 dialects. And what you're talking about, Chris, makes absolute sense. Even if you take English, for example, the way you speak it out there, or the Britishers in Britain, or how we speak it here, or the Aussies, is quite different. And when you talk about trend and voice being a significant trend, it makes all the more sense for us as marketers, as business owners out here, to leverage that. Now, the next question, Chris, is regarding the pandemic and the lockdown. I know my business has had to pivot, and my professional speaking, I've had to start online courses and books and a whole lot of parallel ventures. I do check from your website that not only have you grown, you've also secured orders in Canada and other countries as well. So the dreaded word pivot, how did you, Chris, handle it during the pandemic for yourself as a professional speaker and for your business?
Yeah, so I believe that during the pandemic or any other major change in the world, there's always going to be some opportunities. So I realized that when this stuff happened, that there is opportunities when it comes to helping businesses. And some of the reasons why my business grew during this time is because all of these organizations, they now understood the need to grow online. They now understood the need to go virtual within their company, the need to try to take advantage of these online trends. And that's why you see some companies, they grew so fast during this, because they were already in an industry, and they were probably early in the industry, maybe doing online classes, online courses, and they're doing some of the stuff partly virtual. And then you see these businesses grew because they were already implementing some of these things early on. So what I realized is that if you want to really take advantage of a big change or a trend, you got to start thinking about, how can you start working on that trend right now, before it even happens, before it booms, before everybody starts talking about it, before people start coming to your website. Work on that right now. That's why the content is so important on your website. For example, if the news stations say, hey, there's going to be a pandemic right now, tomorrow, people are going to automatically start doing more searches for certain things. And so you got to ask yourself, were you already working on that website before? Were you already working on those pages before? Or are you just hopping in the trend a little bit late? So that's why you got to think about, what is the next step in your industry? What do people want? What could possibly happen in the world? I'm not saying that we couldn't have predicted the pandemic, but you got to think about what can possibly change. What are people going towards in the future? But for example, when it comes to hybrid environments, remote environment, people have been talking about it for years. So it's just now that people are being forced to do it. So that's what people got to consider. It's like, yeah, we knew about this, but it's forcing us to do this at a fast pace that we weren't really were ready for it, but now we have to implement. So the way I did it was I started offering virtual solutions. And the good thing about it is like I was already doing hundreds of online sessions before. I did online sessions and I did the in-person sessions, but I like in-person sessions more. But I decided, right when this stuff happened, I need to start promoting that I do virtual sessions. Some professionals didn't want to do it. Some business owners didn't really want to go into virtual. They wanted to wait it out. But I was like, you know what? I've already did this. I'm going to use my experience. I'm going to get some testimonials of when I did virtual, and I'm going to promote that. Created virtual demo reels. So as a company, we're showing what we can do specifically virtually, not just showing an old video of what we did last year, but how can we relate to what's going on right now within your company? And also just continue to promoting the same stuff, like as far as like online, consistently posting on social, consistently adding blog posts to the site. And that's really helped me pivot. But in reality, some of the stuff was happening beforehand, but you just got to be ready for the opportunity. So it's one of those things where it's like you're working hard, and then it's kind of like when luck means opportunity, I think what they say. So, but yeah.
Absolutely. But there's this long-standing trend that I see as a business owner, as a consultant, when I try to drive some change, come up with something new on the marketing front, try to convince the clients, I hit a wall out there. They don't want to try anything new, or they nod their head, but never come around and give their approval, or if the top gives the approval, the middle pretty much drags their feet. So my question to you is from a North American perspective, what's the biggest problem or challenge you face when you try to pitch newer digital marketing trends to your clients? I mean, this is an Outlier Marketer Show. So when we know that challenge, then we can think and ideate about, hey, what are the unconventional ways in which we can reach out? But I'd love to hear from you on that, Chris.
Yeah, sure. So there's always going to be some type of resistance to change, even if the change is good. So they might be thinking that, hey, if we change this, it's going to be more work for us. If we change this, then somebody's going to be unhappy. Or if we change this, then we might not get as much results as we had before. But one of the things you got to consider is, are you ahead of your competitors? And is this trend being used by your competitors? If we're going to pivot, we got to think about how can we become leaders in the marketplace when we pivot versus always trying to be a follower, always trying to follow the next company in what they're doing. Because sometimes if we're followers all the time, guess what? We're losing out on the opportunity. So we're losing out on the opportunity, and we're not taking advantage of the fact that we could be leaders. So that's why I try to let people know that's one of the biggest challenges. If it's something new, it's kind of like pushback, especially if it's a corporate environment, because you have all this red tape, you have to go through all these decisions, and you have to get approvals. And what I found is the best way to get people on board is to educate them. So once you educate them, that's the easiest way to get stuff going. So I always tell people, there was a person that came to one of my seminars, and she worked with a large amount of nurses in a hospital. She was a manager, and they ended up deciding, instead of pen and paper, they're going to use electronic record systems instead. And so many of the nurses were upset about this because they were so used to using pen and paper. And so what they ended up doing was they sat down with them one-on-one for about, I'd say, 2 to 3 days. And guess what? After a couple months, these nurses realized that they were actually saving a lot of time with this new tool, with this new technology. And so it all comes down to, how can you educate the audience, your clients, your organization, your customer on this new pivot to the point where they're okay with it. And remember to involve them in the change too. So you can get that buy-in early on. So that's what I would recommend for that. But it is kind of a challenge sometimes, because people are set in their ways and they don't want to make those moves.
It is, but you beautifully put it, which I'm paraphrasing, that education and awareness are the ammunition against this war on false perception. And we would need to get that across. And you beautifully said, show them where the competition is at. And that's the lovely way to look at.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. what is the most crazy, outlier, unconventional thing you've done in your career as a speaker, consultant, trainer? What is it?
Oh, okay. So when it comes to, I would say things that I do differently is like reaching out to, like if I see people that have work with organizations, I look at people that are in my industry and I can look at testimonials. Like I say, hey, you know, like what type of association? I try to go and see the people that I want to be like, the organizations that I want my company to be like. I look at the companies that they've worked with, and then I can go and see, like, you know what, this is a good way to start. You know, it's a good place to start. You know, so look at its clients, look at their different job titles, and then I get a sense. Because one thing I realized when it comes to this industry that we're in is that there's so much to learn. There's, you know, it's like starting from scratch. Just like, no, we're in the same association. This start from scratch is really difficult. You need guidance, you need help, you need advice, you need to figure out what works, what doesn't work. So like work with people that have already been where you are. That kind of can speed your career up really quickly, you know, instead of trying to work from scratch. So yeah, look at what other people are doing. That's a huge help.
Ah, beautiful. Now, one last question, and that's related to what you see behind me. That's not a Zoom screen. That's my personal library. I love books, Chris. And I see that you have one that's out, Digital Marketing for Results, for our listeners and viewers. Chris, tell us more about your book.
Yes. So I realized that whenever I was presenting that many people, they understood digital marketing, they understood maybe social media, they understood LinkedIn, they understood what email marketing is, they even understood analytics. But the problem was there was a disconnect when it comes to putting everything together. So if it was a marketing manager, a marketing executive that really wanted to understand what's going on digitally, maybe they were used to using billboard advertisements or TV ads, and now they're deciding to go digital. There is a disconnect when it comes to implementing those strategies. So I took the time and wrote the book and divided up into so many different chapters. And each chapter shows you what the channel is. So what is Google Analytics? What is search optimization? What does it mean to go from traditional to digital? So it kind of guides people no matter what level of experience to the point where after you read the book, you'll be good to go. You know, no matter what, even if you're an entrepreneur, growth stage entrepreneur, you're trying to figure out what is digital about. I kind of know what social media is. I kind of know what Instagram is, but that's about it. But there's so many other opportunities online. So remember what I said earlier, which is take advantage of where your competitors are not at. And so in that book, you're going to find examples, case studies, people get interviewed about their experiences and step-by-step strategies on what to do to grow online. So yeah, it's really excited and proud of that book.
Oh, lovely, Chris. I can't wait to check that out. And for all you viewers and listeners, go to Chris' website, chrisnwest.com. Check out what he's talking about, his awards and his book. Thank you very much for being on the show, Chris.
Thanks, no problem.
Thank you. Before I wind up, a quick word of thanks to cando.ind.in, our sponsors. Go to the website, search for the matchbook and download it, all you entrepreneurs in India. The request from Cando is, can you hire one person with disability in your organization? Visit the website, download the book and check it out. Thank you, Cando. And thank you, Outliers. Think, act, and be different.